It was supposed to be a perfect life, a millionaire husband, a dream home, and a baby on the way. Everything looked flawless from the outside: elegant dinner parties, luxury cars in the driveway, vacations in exotic places, and a nursery waiting patiently to welcome a new life. She was glowing with the joy of motherhood, and he, by all appearances, was a successful, caring man. The kind of man who had everything and gave everything. Their lives were the type most people scrolled past on social media with envy. But behind the smiling photos and golden image was a storm quietly brewing. A storm no one saw coming until it exploded into something unthinkable. Because one night, everything changed. One moment she was resting, dreaming about her baby's future, and the next, she was fighting for her life. Trapped in the darkness, struggling for breath, buried beneath concrete slabs meant to become her tomb. Her loving husband, the man she had trusted with her life and her child's, had made a deadly decision. He didn't just want out of the marriage. He wanted her gone. Permanently. What could make a man snap like that? Was it greed? Jealousy? Fear of responsibility? Or was it something much darker, something planned, premeditated, and cold? What really drives someone to murder the very person they once vowed to protect, to cherish, to build a life with? How does love twist into betrayal so vicious that it becomes an attempt at murder? This story isn't just about crime, it's about survival. It's about a woman who refused to die, even when the world closed in on her, quite literally. Buried alive and pregnant, she did the impossible. She moved every brick, every slab, every ounce of her pain, and rose out of her own grave. This isn't a headline. It's a real story of resilience, fear, and a mother's unstoppable will to live, not just for herself, but for the life growing inside her. And once you hear it, you'll never forget it. Her name was Alina Khan, graceful, intelligent, and deeply kind. A former interior designer turned philanthropist, Alina was known not just for her beauty but for her ability to bring warmth to any room she entered. He was Danish Malik, a self-made millionaire with roots in tech and real estate, praised for his sharp business mind and charm. Together, they looked like the kind of couple you'd expect to see on the cover of a luxury lifestyle magazine. But their story didn't begin in the spotlight. They met at a charity gala in Lahore, an event neither of them had really planned on attending. Alina was there helping raise funds for a children's hospital. Danish was invited as a keynote sponsor. Their eyes met across a crowded hall, and by the end of the night, they were sharing coffee and dreams. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, but it was steady, and seemingly strong. Friends and family watched as the two built a life that seemed to be rooted in mutual respect, admiration, and ambition. Over the years, Danish's wealth multiplied. His investments in technology startups paid off massively, and soon he was branching into luxury real estate. They moved into a mansion nestled in a gated community, complete with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and an indoor pool that shimmered like liquid diamonds. Alina, meanwhile, stepped away from her design firm to focus on causes close to her heart: women's education, orphan support, and eventually, preparations for motherhood. Their social media feeds were a curated gallery of elegance: designer wardrobes, romantic vacations in Santorini, candlelit anniversaries, luxury SUVs, and glowing photos of Alina cradling her baby bump. Their friends called them the real-life power couple. Even strangers admired them from afar. Goals, people would comment under their posts. Alina's soft smile and Danish's strong presence gave off the aura of a fairy tale marriage, untouched by the common problems that plague ordinary relationships. At family gatherings, Danish played the perfect husband, doting, respectful, always attentive. He'd place his hand protectively on Alina's back, pour her juice with care, and listen as she spoke about her dreams for the baby's nursery. Alina often said she felt like the luckiest woman alive. And maybe, at one point, she was. Their home was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a castle built on shared promises. Late-night talks about baby names, giggles while picking out tiny clothes, dreams of raising a child in a safe, beautiful world they had created. To those watching from outside, this was a life many would trade anything for. But no one saw what happened behind closed doors. No one questioned the slightly forced smile on Alina's face at a dinner party. No one noticed the way Danish sometimes stared at her, not with love, but with something harder to define. No one imagined that this dream life, this picture-perfect love story, was about to shatter in the most horrifying way. The emotional contrast between what they appeared to be and what they were about to become couldn't be starker. They weren't just any couple, they were symbols of success, symbols of love, of having made it. And that's what made what came next so hard to believe. Because when someone who seems to have it all suddenly becomes capable of the unthinkable, it forces us to question everything. What lies beneath the surface of perfection? How well do we ever really know the person sleeping beside us? In the end, the world saw the lavish vacations and polished Instagram photos. What they didn't see was the fear, the silence, and the terrible secret growing quietly inside a house built on gold, until the night that secret could no longer be hidden. At first, it was subtle, barely noticeable to anyone else but unmistakable to Alina. Danish, once warm and engaging, had started to withdraw. The man who used to greet her with a kiss on the forehead every morning now buried his face in his phone, barely acknowledging her. Their conversations, once filled with laughter and long, thoughtful exchanges, became clipped and transactional. "Did you eat?" "Yeah." "How was your meeting?" "Fine." That was the extent of it. No warmth, no spark, just cold indifference that settled into the walls of their million-dollar home like an unwelcome chill. At first, Alina tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was stressed. His businesses had expanded rapidly, and he was juggling multiple ventures. But something in her gut told her it wasn't just work. She'd catch him staring blankly at his laptop screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard but not typing. Or worse, she'd walk into the room and he'd quickly close tabs or turn off his phone as if hiding something. He started working late, too often. When she asked about it, his answers came fast, rehearsed, defensive. "I told you, Alina, the new project in Dubai is draining. I don't have time for this drama." Drama. That word stung more than she wanted to admit. The emotional distance grew with every passing day. He began missing doctor's appointments, skipped a family dinner where they were supposed to reveal the baby's gender, and rarely touched her anymore. Even when she placed his hand on her belly to feel the baby kick, his reaction was lukewarm. "That's nice," he said once, as if commenting on a change in weather. Alina couldn't ignore it any longer. Her heart whispered what her mind didn't want to hear. Something was deeply wrong. She started noticing small but alarming signs. Credit card charges from places she hadn't visited. Mysterious late-night calls he'd take in another room. Once, when he left his phone on the bed and went into the shower, a message popped up. Just a name, Nadia, with a heart emoji. Her stomach twisted. She didn't confront him immediately. She needed to be sure. So she waited, watched, and prayed it was just a misunderstanding. But every day, his absence became more than physical. It was emotional, spiritual. He was slipping away, and in his place was someone she didn't recognize. One night, in the middle of what should have been a quiet dinner, she finally asked, "Danish, are you cheating on me?" The fork clattered on his plate. For a moment, silence choked the room. Then he looked up, cold and expressionless. "Don't be paranoid. That's the pregnancy hormones talking." It was a gaslight, and she knew it. But she didn't press him further. She was 8 months pregnant, emotionally drained, and the last thing she wanted was a full-blown confrontation. Still, questions buzzed in her mind like a swarm of bees. Was he regretting the baby? Was he jealous of the attention she now gave to the life growing inside her? Or was this something deeper, a crack in his soul that no amount of love could seal? Even when he tried to act normal, buying flowers, asking about her cravings, there was a mechanical edge to it. As if he were checking boxes. Alina could feel the gap between them widening like a fault line, silent but inevitable. One night, as she lay in bed unable to sleep, she whispered to herself, "He's not the man I married anymore." She placed her hand over her belly. "But I have to protect you." She didn't know then how literal that promise would become. The instincts that had started as a whisper would soon become a scream no one would hear, trapped under the weight of betrayal, cement, and something far more horrifying than she could ever imagine. The perfect life had begun to crack. And beneath the surface, something evil was growing. In Danish Malik's mind, everything was slipping out of control. The facade of the perfect life was cracking not just at home, but within him. The woman he had once adored now felt like an anchor. The baby, once a symbol of legacy, now seemed like a threat to his freedom, his lifestyle, and most of all, his ego. Deep down, Danish couldn't stand the idea of no longer being the center of attention. Alina's growing belly was not just a sign of impending fatherhood, it was a daily reminder that things were about to change, permanently, and not on his terms. But it wasn't just emotional insecurity. Danish had secrets buried deeper than even Alina could have imagined. There were financial deals he had kept hidden from her, high-stakes loans from dangerous people, money siphoned from joint business accounts, and even pending lawsuits in other countries under proxy names. If Alina ever found out, not only would she leave him, but she'd likely take everything, and expose him in the process. He couldn't afford that. In his twisted logic, killing her became a solution. A final reset button. If she and the unborn child were gone, he could play the grieving husband, cash in on sympathy, inherit everything, and move on with no consequences. It was monstrous. It was calculated. And, in his mind, it was clean. So he began to plan. It started with researching construction materials. What could mask the scent of a body, what weight was enough to prevent escape, how long decomposition would take in concrete. He spent days visiting remote properties he owned under corporate names, choosing the perfect site, an unfinished warehouse on the outskirts of the city, still under development. Isolated, forgotten, and silent. No one would look there. Then came the pit. A 6-foot-deep trench dug into the floor of the warehouse, meant for plumbing work. He instructed the workers to leave it open for inspection. Once they left, he reinforced it with wooden planks and steel mesh. He had cement slabs delivered discreetly, each one weighing enough to crush bone. He waited for the perfect night. It was a Wednesday. Alina was 8 months pregnant, tired, and emotionally exhausted. She had cried herself to sleep the night before, sensing that something was wrong but unable to name it. That night, Danish came home early, for the first time in weeks, and offered to take her on a surprise trip. "You need a break," he said softly. "Somewhere peaceful. Just us." Alina hesitated, but part of her, still hopeful, still clinging to the man she once loved, agreed. She thought maybe he was trying. Maybe he remembered who they were. They drove for over an hour, winding through the outskirts of the city until they reached the warehouse. She was confused. "This doesn't look like a resort," she said with a half-hearted laugh. "It's a shortcut," he replied, his tone calm, unreadable. "I just need to check on something for a minute." Inside, the warehouse was dark, the air thick with dust. Alina stood by the car, hesitant. Then, he asked her to follow him inside. "It'll only take a second," he said. As she stepped in, the lights flickered on, dim industrial bulbs hanging from steel beams. That's when she saw it. The pit in the ground, covered by a tarp. Her instincts screamed, but before she could move, he struck. The blow came from behind, blunt force, sharp enough to disorient but not kill. She collapsed, clutching her belly in pain and terror. He dragged her body toward the pit, every second calculated, methodical. With his gloves on and heart cold, he lowered her in, layer by layer. Not with care, but with cruelty. Alina was semi-conscious, her vision blurry, her thoughts fragmented. She felt the world closing in as he placed the slabs, 1, 2, 3, over the pit. Each one heavier than the last. He poured dry cement in between, mixing just enough water to harden it quickly. The fumes stung her nose. Her breathing slowed. She couldn't scream, her mouth was dry, her ribs ached, and her unborn child kicked frantically inside her. The last sound she heard from above was the grinding of concrete, then footsteps walking away. Darkness. Silence. The weight on her chest was unbearable. Panic surged through her like electricity. Her limbs were weak, her head pounding. She couldn't tell how much time had passed. Minutes, hours. She wasn't sure if she was dreaming or dying. But then she heard it, her baby's heartbeat in her mind, like a faint drum urging her not to give in. Her hand moved, barely. Her fingers found a crack, just an inch between slabs, enough to wedge in. She pushed. Nothing. She pushed again, harder this time. Something shifted. The pain was excruciating, but the instinct to survive was stronger. Above ground, Danish drove home in silence. He rehearsed his story. Alina never came back from the trip. She must have run away. He'd file a missing person report. He'd cry in front of the cameras. No one would ever know. But beneath the ground, under layers of dust and death, Alina wasn't dead. Not yet. And what Danish didn't know was that the woman he tried to bury wasn't just a victim, she was a mother. And mothers don't give up. Not without a fight. Darkness. That's the first thing Alina felt. Not the kind that comes when you close your eyes. This was heavier, suffocating, like the world itself had collapsed on her. Her lungs screamed for air, but every breath felt like trying to inhale through a pillow soaked in cement dust. She coughed weakly, the sound barely escaping her throat, muffled by the weight of debris pressing against her chest. The taste of blood and dust coated her mouth. Her ears rang. Her body ached in ways she didn't think possible. And then it hit her, the baby. Her hands moved instinctively, trembling as they found her swollen belly. A faint kick answered. She gasped, half in relief, half in fear. He's alive, she thought. We're both alive. But for how long? Her heart pounded, loud and desperate. The world around her was tight and hot. There was no room to turn, no light to follow, only the sharp, burning pressure on her ribs and the crushing weight of cement slabs above her. Her fingers scraped at the slab directly above her, rough, unpolished concrete that bit into her skin as she pushed. It didn't budge. Her mind raced through flashes of what had just happened. Danish's cold eyes, the blow to her head, the pit, the silence, the slabs falling one by one like a final curtain. She wanted to scream, but her throat burned too badly. Panic clawed its way up her spine, threatening to consume her completely. But then, she remembered. A voice inside her. Breathe. Think. Move. That voice wasn't panic. It was something else. A quiet fury. A will to survive, not just for her, but for the tiny life inside her who had no choice in any of this. She had to fight. Giving up wasn't an option. With every ounce of strength she had left, she focused on her breath. Shallow, controlled, painful. She dug her fingers around the slab again, trying to find a crack or an edge. Her nails broke, her hands blistered, but she kept going. Inch by inch. She pushed. Nothing. She pushed again, her arms shaking from the strain. Still nothing. But she didn't stop. Time didn't exist anymore. Minutes felt like hours, hours like an eternity. Sweat ran into her eyes, mixing with tears. Her body screamed in protest, her back seared with pain, her legs cramping from the confined space, her stomach tight with the constant fear of hurting her unborn child. Still, she moved. Every inch she gained was a small miracle. A tiny act of rebellion against death. A war waged in silence and darkness. One slab shifted slightly, just enough to let in a whisper of air. She gasped, coughing violently but grateful. Her hands moved faster now, driven by the instinct to survive. She wedged her shoulder under a loosened slab and pushed with all her might. A cracking sound echoed through the pit. It felt like the earth was splitting. And then, light. Not sunlight. Just a faint beam seeping through a crack. But to Alina, it was everything. Proof that there was still a world beyond this grave. Proof that she wasn't alone. She sobbed quietly, the sound raw, unfiltered. But she didn't stop moving. She moved every slab, inch by inch, heartbeat by heartbeat, with her bare hands, her bleeding arms, and a mother's rage. Her fingers were numb, her vision blurred, but her spirit burned with something ancient and unbreakable. She thought of her baby's heartbeat. The soft fluttering she had felt so many times in bed, in clinics, in dreams. That tiny rhythm was her lifeline now, the only music in the deafening silence. Finally, after what felt like forever, she broke through. Her arm pushed through to open air. She pulled herself upward, crawling over debris, blood smearing the edges of broken concrete. Her body shook violently, collapsing more than climbing. But she kept going. She emerged from the pit like a ghost pulled from the earth. Covered in ash, cement, and blood, her hair tangled, her dress torn, her face nearly unrecognizable, but her eyes burned with life. Alina collapsed just outside the pit, gasping, sobbing, clutching her stomach. Her child kicked again, stronger this time, as if echoing her will to live. She laid there in silence, the stars above watching in disbelief. She had done it. She had survived the impossible. Buried alive, left for dead, betrayed in the most brutal way, and still, she rose. She didn't know how far help was, or how long it would take before someone found her. But she had climbed out of her own grave. That was enough for now. Danish had underestimated her. He had buried her body, but not her spirit. He had counted on silence, but she brought with her a storm. A storm made of courage, pain, love, and something far stronger than fear. Because in the end, he wasn't fighting just a woman. He was fighting a mother. After what felt like an eternity trapped beneath the suffocating weight of concrete and earth, Alina's strength finally broke through the final barrier. With trembling limbs and a heart pounding like a war drum, she hauled herself out of the pit. The night air hit her face, cold and sharp, a shocking contrast to the stifling darkness she'd just escaped. She collapsed on the cold ground outside the warehouse, her body trembling from exhaustion, pain, and shock. The weight she'd carried wasn't just physical, it was the crushing betrayal, the terror, and the overwhelming instinct to survive for both herself and her unborn child. For a long moment, she lay there, barely able to catch her breath, her clothes torn and stained with dust and blood. Every heartbeat was a victory. The faint glow of streetlights flickered nearby, a beacon of hope in the endless night. She tried to stand, but her legs buckled beneath her. She had no choice but to crawl toward the distant sounds of the city. Hours seemed to pass as she dragged herself over uneven gravel and broken glass, her cries for help weak but persistent. At one point, she thought she might collapse forever. But then she heard it, voices. Footsteps. The unmistakable crunch of someone approaching. It was a local delivery driver, making his rounds early in the morning. The man froze when he saw her, a disheveled, pale woman emerging from the shadows, coated in cement dust, eyes wide with desperation. "Help, please," she whispered, her voice cracking. Without hesitation, he pulled out his phone and called emergency services. Paramedics arrived swiftly, their faces a mixture of shock and urgency as they assessed Alina's condition. She was dehydrated, weak, and suffering from severe exhaustion and trauma, but she was alive. At the hospital, the atmosphere was tense. Doctors and nurses worked quickly to stabilize her, running tests and monitoring the baby's heartbeat closely. The unborn child, a fragile but determined presence, was fighting alongside her mother. The medical team shared cautious optimism. Both had survived a miracle. News of the rescue spread rapidly. Friends and family rushed to the hospital, some in tears, others in stunned silence. The story of betrayal and survival was hard to believe but impossible to ignore. Alina's eyes, though swollen from pain and sleeplessness, burned with a fierce determination that inspired everyone around her. She was asked to recount what happened, but the trauma made the details hazy. What remained crystal clear was her incredible will to live. Every tear she shed told a story of pain and hope intertwined. As the days passed, Alina began the slow journey of physical and emotional recovery. Her bond with her baby grew even stronger, a symbol of resilience in the face of unimaginable darkness. The world saw her not just as a victim, but as a heroine, a mother who defied death itself. Her escape was not just from a physical prison of concrete, but from the shackles of betrayal, fear, and silence. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one of healing, justice, and above all, survival. The moment Alina's miraculous survival became known, the wheels of justice began to turn swiftly. Danish Malik, the millionaire husband who had once been celebrated as a successful businessman and devoted partner, found himself under intense scrutiny. The police launched a thorough investigation, gathering evidence from the warehouse, the pit, and the cement slabs that nearly became Alina's tomb. Forensic experts confirmed traces of blood and signs of a violent struggle. Danish's attempts to cover his tracks unraveled quickly under the weight of overwhelming proof. Within days, Danish was arrested at his luxury home, his expression unreadable as officers read him his rights. The news spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed betrayal, attempted murder, and a millionaire's dark secret. Social media exploded with disbelief and outrage. How could he? People asked. The perfect couple shattered. Viral videos recounted Alina's harrowing escape and the depths of Danish's cruelty. Support poured in from all corners. Celebrities, activists, even strangers rallied behind Alina, who had become a symbol of courage and survival. Meanwhile, Alina's recovery was both physical and emotional. The injuries she sustained, bruises, fractures, and severe exhaustion, required months of medical care and rehabilitation. But the deepest wounds were those unseen, the trauma of betrayal, the fear that had haunted her, and the shattered trust that would take years to rebuild. Therapy sessions became her sanctuary, a space where she confronted nightmares and slowly reclaimed her strength. Through it all, the baby remained her beacon of hope. Months after her escape, in a quiet hospital room filled with soft light and the hum of machines, Alina gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Holding her daughter for the first time, tears streaming down her face, she whispered promises of protection and love. This child was more than a new life. She was a testament to Alina's resilience and refusal to be broken. Starting over was daunting. Alina moved away from the mansion that held so many painful memories, choosing instead a modest home surrounded by close friends and family. She returned to her passion for philanthropy, channeling her experience into advocating for victims of domestic violence and raising awareness about hidden abuse. Her story became a powerful voice in the fight against violence, inspiring countless others to speak out. The trial of Danish Malik was a spectacle of justice in motion. Evidence was presented with harrowing clarity: the messages, the financial motives, the physical attempts to silence Alina forever. Witnesses testified about the couple's troubled relationship, painting a picture starkly different from the glamorous life they had once projected. In the end, Danish was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to a lengthy prison term. For Alina, justice was not just about punishment. It was about reclaiming her life, her dignity, and her future. Each day brought new challenges, but also new victories. From the shadows of betrayal and violence, she rose as a survivor, a mother, a fighter, and a beacon of hope to anyone facing their own battles. Her journey was far from over, but Alina knew this. No matter what lay ahead, she had already conquered the darkest night imaginable, and emerged stronger on the other side. I want to share something deeply personal, something that changed my life forever. When you find yourself trapped in darkness, whether it's fear, betrayal, or pain that seems unbearable, remember this: you are stronger than you know. I speak not just as a survivor, but as a mother who refused to give up, even when the odds were stacked against me. There were moments when I thought I couldn't breathe, when hope felt like a distant memory buried under layers of concrete and silence. But it was my unborn child's heartbeat, that tiny spark inside me, that kept me fighting. Motherhood gave me a power I never knew existed, a fierce determination to live, to protect, and to rise. If my story teaches anything, it's that no one deserves to suffer in silence. Domestic abuse is a hidden epidemic that thrives behind closed doors, in homes that look perfect from the outside. It's a painful truth that many endure alone, but it doesn't have to be that way. Speak up. Reach out. There is help. There is hope. To anyone watching this who feels trapped, know that you are not alone. Your life matters. Your story matters. And no matter how dark it seems, there is always a way out. Strength is not about never falling. It's about rising every single time you do. My journey wasn't easy. It's still not. But every step forward is a victory. From the depths of despair, I found light, courage, and a renewed purpose. And I promise you, if I can survive, so can you. Hold on to hope. Fight for yourself and those you love. Because in the end, love and resilience will always conquer the darkest night.